in another portion of the bracket. But now being up against ByuN, it's going to be a tall ask. There is that lower bracket to go into, kind of a safety net a little bit, but it's going to be difficult. And, well, this guy, as we finally get into this game, is where everyone's eyes are on to not just get through the groups, but also onwards into maybe even the round of 8 or round of 4. He is the Blue Terran, ByuN.
Was recently picked up by Shopify for the Rebellion, the brand new team jumping into our fine game scene. In the top right here from GGG SC2, Good Game Gaming, it is Dream. Oh, I'm starting to feel that magic zombie grub. It is IEM Katowice. Even though we may not be actually in the same area together, we are all together through the power of the interwebs. And I'm feeling that magic. This is the World Finals after all.
It's starting to feel a little bit magic. We actually get into the game that is StarCraft 2, the game that we all know and love, and we see our favorite players, we see this fantastic production, and we start to get the wiggly jigglies. It's a wiggly,
yeah.
But now I'm off camera, so thank God for that. But I am wiggly jiggly about this one. TVT is still a fantastic matchup. It's certainly changed a little bit over the last few months. It's a developing matchup at all times, as is generally StarCraft 2. And you brought it up, that we have a lot more inclusions of medevac openers, especially from some of these Korean Terrans.
Yeah, indeed. They really like to turn up the heat nice and early with those medevac openers. We've seen them a lot from Dream lately. ByuN, of course, no stranger to medevac openers himself. He's actually sometimes gone 2-1-1 in TVT, like something you didn't really see at the higher end of the ladder, but this guy just loves his Marines and he loves getting into your face real quick with stem timing attacks. We do have, of course, as the builds round out, a gas first, or rather a barracks first from ByuN, from Dream with the fast expand. I'm sorry, I have to get used to my home setup, but we're getting there. And looked like the double gas from ByuN, the more sort of regular, safer macro opener here. He's taken not just 2 SCVs out of gas, though. He's taken 4 SCVs out of gas. So really looking to get that command center nice and quick, and probably not going to shoot up to that starport too quickly.
Not too quickly. If we do see a full-on 1-1-1 before a command center, that is actually something worth noting, but we don't usually see it, called a factory expand. So we have a little bit of a tussle finally going down here with the Reapers throwing grenades at each other, but since there's not too much following this up, as long as Dream doesn't lose this Reaper and then have, you know, nothing else to defend with, I mean, he's going to be okay. And he's actually getting a second Reaper, so he might have gone for the faster command center, but he's actually really not playing that greedy.
Yeah, all is pretty normal here. Second gases are down and now mining for both players. And the Reapers are holding the fort. Looks like, once again, ByuN coming across the map to try and engage Dream. The defender's advantage for Dream is quite nice. He is switching out of the Reaper stage of the game, the Reaper Hellion stage of the game, into Marine production. So the add-on's about to come on that barracks as well. Actually going to get a second Marine here, maybe feeling a little bit more pressure. The reactor faster for ByuN, actually, on the other side of the map, as he starts to round out his 1-1-1 production. Dream starport feels like it's a little bit later there. That's interesting, considering that ByuN pulled out of gas so much, but I guess he did get the refinery so much quicker, so it doesn't really make that much of a difference when you kind of cut it down.
Not so much. I think we are guaranteed to see some medevac play, and as I say it, ByuN does add on that medevac, either with some of the very cool micro tricks that we know ByuN is capable of, or for what has become really standard amongst other maps, like Oxide, for instance, which is the tank medevac drop. But this is ByuN just looking to use his micro, dodge out Cyclone lock-ons, use his own Cyclone lock-on, and do some damage. You don't see a medevac popping out without it being the intent of the use of it to actually go across the map and be aggressive. So ByuN's going to try and control this TVT from the start.
And as the builds round out, we do have, of course, the medevac going across the map for ByuN. Dream with that Widowmine here, expecting a ground force. Doesn't have a ton to stop a medevac getting in the main. ByuN's going to try and just break through this position here with the power of the medevac. Like you mentioned, he can break lock-ons, he can juggle units around. His micro is pretty exceptional, though he does lose that Hellion to start things off with. That medevac with the Marines in tow is quite a threat here to Dream. The Widowmine, almost in range to lock on to those units of ByuN here. Both players getting out their Ravens as well. Ravens actually have a ton of utility here, not just for shutdowns, but also just to drop the auto turret, which is such a fantastic early game utility spell to have here for the Ravens, both players. And of course, Dream has a bit more of a rain advantage. It's unlikely ByuN's going to send that Raven across the map, but he could, of course, if he's feeling like he has an opening.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, just controlling the flow of TVTs is really important, and a lot of players really also thrive in that control as well, where some players actually thrive in the defensive situation. Coming to mind is Innovation, who always felt comfortable against some of the aggressive two-base attacks we had in previous iterations of the meta. But yeah, just controlling the flow right now. ByuN is on his Dream side of the map, and Dream's just like, well, I guess you can't really do a whole lot. I seem to be pretty well defended, so let's just try and keep our macro up and keep going. Actually, he's going to move out a little bit here, thinking that he has a shot with double Raven throwing him the auto turret. Just one going down, actually, and one might be all that he needs, as he just says, shoot, go away, ByuN. Stop it.
Yeah. And now that a tank's out with a Viking, or actually Vikings, he switched over the add-ons here on the way for Dream. It kind of feels like he's weathered the storm. You know, that early game medevac play from ByuN, not really finding any purchase for the blue Terran. I gotta say, I kind of like Dream's position a lot more.
Yeah, it's actually feeling pretty good for Dream, but I feel like ByuN actually, you know, I remember saying this a lot about ByuN's TVT, where I'm like, oh, like, I mean, he plays kind of differently, maybe he's still kind of figuring things out, and then actually, even when he seems like he's losing out, like less Ravens, not taking the better engagements, his ability to position correctly and get the most out of his units really starts to show. But Dream is playing a very patient game, getting into those Vikings, both similarly timed on that Stim and third CC. So, I mean, at any point it feels like ByuN is willing to engage, but usually at this time, with other Terrans, we'd be talking kind of about, yeah, the usual lull that happens, and they both move on and wait for Stim and combat shields to finish.
Yeah, there's some slight differences here. Obviously, the builds are very, very similar, both going bio tank here. But we do have Dream going for the faster second and third barracks, later engineering bays, vice versa for ByuN. So he's concentrating on getting that third base up. The third base is done for Dream, but he didn't build it on location, so small differences there. He's moving out to try and secure that spot, though, with ByuN just on the edge of that acceleration zone, threatening this position of Dream. But it feels like he doesn't really have the firepower, specifically in the air, to make something happen here. Oh, that might help.
And the double medevac's going out, going to try and get into that main base and do some serious damage, and then hopefully distract Dream as well, as Dream did start to move out a little bit. Again, probably it looks like just shooing ByuN away, so just making sure that his third CC comes down with no problem. But now that ByuN has a little bit of a mobility, he has those medevacs out, it could be a problem. Cyclone actually sharking around for it, nicely guessed by Dream here, who is not going to be quite patient enough to actually get those medevacs.
Speaking of patience, ByuN took a little bit of time to get those Ravens into the mix, but they have found themselves a mineral line. They got some SCV kills and also denying quite a bit of mining here as well. Using this distraction, ByuN expertly getting these medevacs in position to try and threaten the main now. Oh, Dream's army is completely out of position to hold this as well. All the Air Force is also by the third base. ByuN in the main of Dream, and SCVs are going to go a-flying.
That's going to be a decent amount of damage after going after combat shields. Is an excellent pickoff right there. That is really important. Dream will eventually be cleaning this up and trying to save his Ravens to the best of his ability, but oh no. Yeah, he's going to clean it up, but it's going to be at a loss, and ByuN is actually starting to position with another army off to that third base. He actually might be able to hit fast enough to gain some advantage there as well.
Yeah, one decisive maneuver just like that, and we're finding ByuN in a lovely position here. The Ravens do have one more interference matrix, but it really feels like it might have to come down to auto turrets if he wants to bust position. The Vikings are being microed back here with that medevac. Of course, the Marines can try and take it down. There's that energy for that last interference matrix. Oh man, ByuN has crippled the economy of Dream so heavily here. Dream needs to not just hold, but somehow try and counterattack here. He's ahead quite a bit in army. Maybe that's something he can do, like utilize the bigger army that he has to try and punish ByuN for his sins. Because at the moment, ByuN's sitting on a 74 SCV economy against just the 58 of Dream. Such a lovely spot here, and the longer the game goes, the better it is for ByuN at this point.
Looks like it's a good thing that ByuN sniped Dream's combat shield, because his combat shield actually wasn't really fast either. And that's actually been kind of a trend with ByuN, as far as I've noticed, a little bit late in the combat shields. And then I think he has his +1 rebound sometimes, occasionally. Not an issue here, as he does have 1-1, as does Dream. But upgrades are similar, which means that that army advantage that Dream does have could matter, but only being up by 10 in a TVT, that's usually negated by just, you know, some tank fire.
Yeah, usually that's the thing about TVT. You could be ahead 30, 40 army supply, and while you do have a lead, technically it can all go away if you don't play your cards correctly in an engagement with those siege tanks just leading your Marine forces and your own tanks. Now, we do see that Dream has got a very healthy-looking Air Force here, and air is extremely important when it comes down to tank versus tank battles in TVT. ByuN's got a ball of Marines and 3 medevacs on the left sides, breaking off 1 Marine here to just have a look at the defenses of Dream, taking a tank shot. He's trying to set up some kind of multiple attack here. You know, ByuN really likes to have a cluster of Marines in a spot, maybe threaten a mineral line, maybe harass a little bit while sending like the main phalanx, the main the power of his force into a different spot that's potentially, that's completely distracted from his opponent. He just never really wants to attack in one place at a time. as is tradition, as he is going to make it a little bit more work here for Dream than he expected for this fourth base. Gonna take a lot of hit points off that thing too. Dream's Army a little bit late to respond here.
Wow,
oh, he's got it.
It's the perfect timing that sometimes happens, right? He moves in at the exact time that Dream wasn't prepared for an attack. He was sending his command center over, and that's a pretty healthy thing usually. But it's just enough Marines to actually shoot that down. And again, ByuN does try to find some wiggle room off the third base, still properly protected by those tanks. And Dream was also quick to realize that's probably his plan, so he moved on over with the army. But that loss of the fourth, I mean, he can definitely recover from it. There haven't been enough scuffles with the actual armies to say like, oh, the loss of a fourth base is like unrecoverable, right? Like he could patiently play this out, and he is getting his fourth base up again, and a fifth actually. But you know, going back to kind of something that you mentioned, like Dream just has never been able to go out on the map and do something. And that doesn't mean that he's necessarily losing the TVT, but it doesn't really give you a lot of confidence in the TVT.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that Dream is, at the moment, losing this TVT. The one thing that's got me a little concerned for ByuN, if I had to nitpick, I'm like, I haven't seen any air units at all from ByuN. It's actually very, very tough if your opponent has a similar tank count to win an engagement without air units in TVT. I mean, maybe just the extra power that he's had in production of Marines and siege tanks and that sort of thing without having to spend money on the Vikings will help him out here. Oh, they're just going to pass each other here. Oh, stuff's about to get weird, Zombie Grub.
Yes, it is. That was actually so close to being able to see each other as well, so I'm really surprised that the base race is going to happen, but here it is, and who has those tanks in better position? Whoever has tanks in that main base usually ends up going up better here in the base rate, but Liberators are actually out trying to support a tank there in the natural for Dream. ByuN's going to try and jump on top of it, but his Marines are already fairly low. Do manage to take it out, and now he's got to go into that main base, get on top of production. That's what really kills a Terran.
Yeah, I mean, Dream's been taking all the blows early here. He's going to go up into the main base. ByuN, how's his main looking? What's that tank count at? Like you mentioned, he needs tanks in the main to hold on. Same deal for Dream. Looks like both players are kind of just down to Marines in the main. ByuN loses that tank, pulls the SCVs. Lots of damage on both sides, but as the dust settles, ByuN is still up 50-60 supply at the moment. So it feels like ByuN just needs to stabilize to win this game.
Yeah, it can still get weird. The army supply is a difference of 40, so that is considerable. ByuN should be winning this game, but base races, I mean, the entire purpose of them generally is to make things weird. In this case, it was just coincidence that they both didn't see each other's armies in the middle of the map. I mean, Dream is on top of ByuN's production faster, better, so that's one thing that Dream has going for him, but I think he also kind of at this point has to hope that ByuN miscalculates one of these engagements and loses the army supply lead.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, eventually the armies will have to fight. They will have to try and end things differently because there isn't the ability to fly units here. I mean, Dream's just going to throw the rest of his SCVs at the meat grinder here. He may actually tap after losing all the workers because he doesn't really have a plan B here apart from float the structures to the corner of the map. He's got to know that ByuN's army is much larger and... Oh man, we even got medevacs coming home from ByuN to try and pick off some of Dream's attack in the main base. Oh, and his Marines are just strong enough to actually break through a lot of it.
Yeah, his Marines right there actually did a very nice job. And the Marines from the backside doing the rest of the job. Only Vikings left over, and Dream taps out. ByuN takes game number 1.
Our first game of the Intel Extreme Masters Katowice 2021 in the bag, with ByuN coming out on top. All right, well, a good start here for both players. Good times, no doubt. I enjoyed game number 1 there, ZG, but I'd like to see a bit more of a contest there from Dream. It feels like he hasn't really been able to show us exactly where he's at in this matchup. I've definitely seen a lot better TVTs from Dream as recently as like a couple days ago. So really hoping that he brings it because as much as he has that loser's bracket, I do know that he has the ability to have a much closer series against ByuN here.
I think so. It's hard not to say that just like sometimes happens in TVT. You know, it actually seems to be happening more recently, those weird base races. So I'm not really surprised that it ended with such a way that, you know, it looked like Dream was totally outclassed, but, you know, he played defensive. He didn't have the map at any point, and the one time that he finally moved out of his box, it's like that meme where he gets punched back into his box, and he's like, never again. I will never move out again, ever. And that doesn't bode well, absolutely not. But then on the other hand, yeah, TVT, sometimes that happens. Sometimes you push out with your 2 tanks, 2 Ravens, or whatever it is, and then the other person does the same thing, and it gets way too weird, way too fast. But the rest of the game, ByuN having control over it, yeah, that is what inspires confidence in StarCraft 2, is when someone has control over the game, and ByuN had a lot of it.
He certainly did. It was pretty interesting as well because, as I was mentioning, I really do put a lot of stonks into that air army in TVT. It is so important for winning those siege tank marine battles, but I guess like if you have that extra resources put into your Marines, put into your tanks, and you get to just walk past the guy's army without actually clashing with it at all, like he doesn't have an entrenched siege tank position, well, I mean, then you don't need that army at all. Like it is such an interesting and weird game one, but also at the same time just pure TVT, a base trade to start game one. You end up in your opponent's main, they end up in your main, and you're just like, well, I hope this works.
Exactly.
All right, well, looks like we're going to go over the desk again to the analysts. Maybe some updates on the games before we get into game two. So, guys, take it away.
That's right. Thank you very much, guys. Great game one to start things up between ByuN and Dream. And we've had other series going on here at the desk as time has gone on as well. First things first, I'm going to go to Cats. Haas versus DRG. Talk to me, Cats.
Yeah, so for anyone that wasn't watching that, it was on Lambo's stream, that was the D stream, and Haas just won 2-0 against DRG. I was actually we were having a rehearsal earlier, and I was joking, like, you know, they were like, talk for a minute, and I knew that I was going to be observing that. And I was like, yeah, Haas chased DRG and he won. But Haas actually did win. And oddly enough, it wasn't that cheesy. First game, he opened with a couple of Void Rays and followed up with, well, a lot of Adepts. But the second game was what really caught me off guard, because this time it was DRG who decided to go on the aggression early. He proxied a hatchery at the ramp of Haas. And I thought, okay, this has got to be some sort of twisted, brilliant plan, but it really just didn't do anything. I mean, he invested a full hatchery, it completed, he got 2 circlings out of it. He was mining gas behind that, but didn't really make burrow or roaches or even a link speed follow-up. And from then on, Haas was just kind of in control of the game. He donated a couple of Adepts early on, but that put aside, he just hit his timings sharp and went with a +2 all-in off of 3 base and completely crushed DRG. So, wow.
Wow. And there was me thinking that one of our Terrans was going to have to go up against DRG. No, the Haas Dream is alive. Maybe. We will see as time goes on. Thank you very much for that update, Cats. Moving on to Nate. You had Nice versus Hurricane. Talk to me.
Yeah, I'll wrap this one up real quick. Void Race. 2 very short games. Nice wins 2-0. That's right, baby. Void Rays for days. All over the place.
Damn. What is going on with results already? This is, I mean, to be fair though, Roddy, and you were mentioning it before when we were talking about it, Nice is no slouch.
No, these guys are actually criminally underrated. Like, for the longest time, I'll admit, I also was like kind of on my European high horse, and I was like, Nice and Haas in Europe, they wouldn't be that special. It's just no longer the case, man. Like, these guys have actually been performing at a very high level for quite some time. I'm not too surprised by those results. It's a bit upsetting. I did watch and paid very close attention to SOS vs Pro, but I know that we have to move on. So I'll save it for a rainy day. We're getting ready for Laser Bunny too, but I have a couple of things to say about this PvP. But I'll do it later, James, because I know you want to cut me off and go to a break.
Actually, I was going to ask you about the match, but it doesn't matter. Yeah, well, we'll go that break, and then afterwards, I'll get your thoughts on your series in just a few. So we'll be right back after this for more Dream and ByuN.
G'day mates, welcome back to the Intel Extreme Masters Katowice. I am Maynard, still joined with the lovely Zombie Grub, of course, here in space in our giant floating platform. Hope you guys are enjoying the broadcast so far. We're just jumping to game number 2 here between ByuN and Dream. Game 1 was a bit of a barn burner, a bit one-sided though. It was pretty much all ByuN after that first drop into the main base. Let's see if Dream can get competitive in game number 2. Zombie Grub, is it going to happen? You got to make the call right now.
Yes, it'll happen. I think Dream, he could possibly be like that comic I mentioned where he's just now tightly packed into his box and he's like, I'm never going to leave again. But he's too good of a player, I think, to do that. That's a scared player, and that's a player that doesn't understand TVT. And as much as he's been having bad luck with TVT recently, I don't think that he's bad at TVT. You can't really be playing at a high level in StarCraft 2 and be bad at one particular matchup, or especially if you're in Korea and be bad at that particular matchup, you're just maybe worse than the guy you're up against, which ByuN is currently actually somewhat leading the charge even on innovating some of these matchups, really experimenting with what pops out of these, starports and factories and whatnot. So he's just a difficult player to be up against, but I think Dream knows what to do to fix it, and he's just going to try and execute it to the best of his ability.
Yeah, he's got to pull up his socks, as it were, here and tighten up those screws, because it was a little bit tough there in game 1. Felt like his plan kind of fell apart a little bit. And actually, I'm going to take a step back from that and just say that it didn't even seem like we got to see his plan. His push was very vanilla, very ho-hum, what you would normally do with Dream's attack timing. It seemed like ByuN had a plan, he executed it, and it just worked out for him. In the bottom right, we were just finishing talking about him from Shopify Rebellion. This is ByuN.
So glad to finally see him. And in the top left of our mana side for Team GGG, he is Dream.
No doubt about to show us some of that good game gaming. Here on Romantis side, one of my favorite maps ever in StarCraft 2. I like this one quite a bit. I really like the color of purple. I really like Maris. I think she does a great job with her maps. So both those things combined with the fact that my win rate on this map is not too bad leads me to loving this map quite a lot.
Yeah, I like it as well. The aesthetic is really nice. And then it's one of the maps that we have that actually is larger than it is tall. It's got some thickness to it, as opposed to, like, for instance, Jagannatha, which everyone kind of thinks is long, and it's actually not that big of a map, but it's vertical, right? So we see the patterns go that way. Romanticide being more horizontal, I think, is what leads to such great, like, PvPs, for instance, and can lead to, of course, other great matchups happening as well. It also means that in TVT, where we don't have necessarily the ability to warp in quickly and our units are between fast and slow type of thing, it typically means that if you pick a lane as a Terran player on this map, you're kind of stuck in it, you know what I mean? You don't just quickly transfer from side to side on the map.
I'm with you there. It also feels like this map, especially in professional level, has maybe more proxies on it than other maps. I don't know if that's just me, but or maybe just the Korean players that I get to cast every single week. It's usually a pretty proxy-heavy one if you get a Terran on it. But as we can see, both players keeping all of their structures in their main base like good little boys. And it actually is a very similar build on both sides. With just ByuN with the second gas opener does mean that he's going to have the faster factory. Dream will the faster command center, though. So a little bit of give and take. Nice to see some differences at the start here. Interesting building placement as well from ByuN, just to keep things away from the ramp. I guess to potentially bamboozle an SCV scout. I'm not sure why else you would do that.
It can bamboozle an SCV scout. You're right about that. The little initial moment of panic that arises when you scout nothing at that ramp. But then it also does help against any type of push that could hit structures or any type of doom drop. Right? Romanticide does have a very large main base where you can successfully drop out your units from a medevac without worry of being cramped. But if you put all of your structures off to the very far side of it, then they have to kind of commit a little bit more, right? They have to actually get close to your structures to do any damage. Yeah, as Mapu's showing us right here. If you dropped all the way to the far left, you're hitting like a refinery if you drop on a ByuN's main, right? So it can help for a couple of different reasons for sure. One thing it doesn't help against, of course, is the possibility of Hellions running up into the main. Not defender type situation, but since he went for the factory expand, he doesn't have to really worry about defending.
Yeah, exactly. A little bit of give and take, a little bit of differences there from both sides. Once again, Dream going for that earlier Widow Mine, which is very stylistic. I have seen him do this more than once here, but it's one of those things that you kind of have to do, because if your opponent is maybe going into the Reaper Hellion a little bit harder than you are, and they just dive with, like, 4 Reapers, 2 Hellions, and you've only got the 2 Reapers and the 1, you need that Widow Mine. Marines don't really cut the mustard. You need that Widow Mine to at least take out one of those units, or make them split up, or at least make them second guess the attack in the natural while you're on your way to your Tech Lab factory unit. Thankfully, at that point, both players have those Cyclones, so the dive potential for both players isn't super high, and Raven #1 already on the way here for Dream. At the moment, ByuN, once again, just going for the fast medevac, really wants to get in the face of Dream early in Game 1 and Game 2.
It paid off to a degree last game. It wasn't what won him the game. It wasn't the first attack, and in fact, at early on in the game, we both mentioned that, kind of like Dream's position. He had the Ravens, he had the Vikings, which are very powerful tools, but ByuN was able to keep that map control and obviously do that drop that really spun things around, really put the game into ByuN's control. So he's hoping to do that again. A Widow Mine is placed in a position that's, is not too uncommon. I'll see if ByuN remembers that or not.
Dream got a little bit of vision there thanks to the Hellion patrolling. Caught the medevac early before it was a problem and has more than enough to hold that back. So it feels like the first wave of this drop from ByuN. Just going to have the wind taken out of the sails here. Of course, ByuN not done. He's got those 2 Cyclones and those 2 Reapers on the back end as well. And when all those units are combined, they are a surprisingly powerful force at this point in the TVT.
I wonder if he
Until
really...
tanks come out.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Cyclones don't do so well against tanks. But I wonder if he figured there'd be a Widow Mine there. And it seemed like he was very cautious not to go up the ramp. That could just be because the obvious is that the army's going to be there. But then he also saw the targeting reticle for just a second there, too. Unfortunately, there's not too much he can do about it. It's kind of awkward to take that out with the high ground being available on Romana side in that position. So he is just apparently once again content in just letting this army chill here and saying, well, at least I'm on your side of the map.
Yeah, just Dream on the defender's side again as well, just kind of sitting back and letting ByuN do what he wants to do at the start of the game. Of course, this doesn't mean that ByuN's leading the game just yet. In fact, Dream has the SCV lead at the moment, a little bit of an army lead as well. Both players around the same time on their tech, though, with Stim around about the same time. A couple lock-ons here, but of course, Dream using high ground to break them off. So just sort of looking at ByuN's army without losing anything. ByuN doing the same thing here with this medevac. I mean, the Vikings are here now. Not really a whole lot ByuN can get done anymore with this army at the front door. So he just takes his third on location. Dream, once again, just like Game 1, conservative here with a third. Going to get it in the main base first before floating it over.
Yeah, well, he kind of had to be. It was his opponent doing all the aggression and could have been following up with something even more severe. You don't know, it's ByuN. But it is actually just that. And as for Dream, he is doing the typical Raven Viking. He wasn't really able to do a push out like he wanted. He kind of did it to make room for the third, but didn't commit. This time, it looks like he is committing. ByuN is going to be able to do a little bit of a backstab and actually grab maybe a couple of units, even that tank perhaps if he's microing. But you got to start wondering as ByuN, where's the rest of the army?
Yeah, exactly. This is a big red flag here for ByuN. That Dream is on the way. Oh, interference matrices on the first 2 tanks, and also auto turrets and Vikings making things difficult defensively for ByuN. Pulling SCVs already, but it's going to be into a meat grinder of Marines. The tanks are going to get up without the SCVs doing a whole lot about it at all, and ByuN is in trouble here a little bit.
Yeah, he's absolutely in trouble. Those SCVs were pulled with not much support. They're supposed to be fodder against Marines, which sucks, but at least they can support. They weren't supporting very much. ByuN just didn't have a lot back at home. He's going to have to pull up his natural, lose 10 SCVs and be okay with it, and just generally just be in an uncomfortable situation. But if he can get us around, then maybe he can entirely clean this up, and that's exactly what he's trying to do.
He is indeed going to go for all angles here just for desperation for ByuN to get through all of it, and he does. Losing 18 SCVs in the meantime, of course, was not easy for ByuN to hold that. Definitely hurts his economy a ton here. Dream with a massive 63 to 37 SCV lead. But he does need to hold on to the counterattack. Still seems like he's got tanks at home. Those Vikings didn't just walk into their deaths as well. I was a little bit worried about those Vikings just flying over the Marines there for Dream. They seemed like they were rallied. And at the moment, considering he's pulled back and ByuN doesn't really show us signs of really having anything to do about this until those medevacs come out, I'd say that Dream's in a lovely spot here.
Absolutely. He's in a fantastic spot. ByuN still has all the things that bring you back in a game, especially a guy like ByuN. He's got the Medivacs, and he's got Marines, basically. Those are two things that you need. But then, of course, you actually need to be able to surprise your opponent, and that's getting increasingly unlikely now that Dream has his third base up saturated. He could easily afford a sensor tower if he's really scared of ByuN somehow making a miracle comeback based off of drops and harassment. He could even afford a couple extra missile turrets more than he usually would in any game. But yeah, Dream should be in a fantastic position. He is down to those upgrades, so really important right now is on ByuN maybe utilizing his army, but it just doesn't seem likely.
ByuN's going double armory here as well.
Yeah.
Deliberate or a mistake? What do you think, ZG?
Mistake.
Yeah, I think
Pretty
so as
sure.
well. Yeah. A bit weird to get the double armory when you're just going biotank here. You don't really want to be able to get anything other than, you know, tank attack, I guess, like the vehicle weapons. But even then, sometimes you just don't use it at all. You just use it to get 2-2. ByuN does have a lot of Marines here. He's going to go for the double drop. 16 Marines at the back of the natural of Dream. And a good spot there with those tanks, of course, going to cancel on the fourth base. The Vikings and the Ravens, though, are going to be tough for ByuN to advance on the natural with anything but these Marines.
Yeah.
Dream is going to have tank support here as he comes down to clean it up.
It's, you know, the Marines actually stood their ground longer than I thought they would, but Dream does clean this up. I guess he was down one upgrade, actually, when he tried to defend. That's funny. An offensive sensor tower? No, it was a wait, Dream built a sensor tower out there? That was weird. I saw the ring on the mini-map, and I thought it was even done, but I guess it was just building? That was weird. I can't explain that one. But anyways, ByuN's attack did not work. The advantage that he had with the upgrades, the even army supply at that time, didn't work out, and now it's 30 army supply down. Of course, SCV's down as well, and ByuN needs to play a pretty perfect defensive game, which he's already messing up a little bit, losing a tank and a medevac, but still, I mean, trying to take the best defensive engagements that he can.
Yeah, ByuN's trying to do everything he can with what he has with his army, which isn't a whole lot compared to Dream. A 91-66 army supply lead here for Dream. While ByuN seemed to be further ahead on those upgrades, he is starting to slip behind a little bit. +2 attack is on the way for ByuN, but missed +2 armor. Dream does have a little bit of a lead there, so while his attack will be quicker, the armor and attack will finish a little bit quicker there for Dream, and also just Dream, much bigger army. The upgrades may not even matter here. Look at all the tanks here for Dream, and that air army, and the Ravens are still alive. Oh, this is a tough nut for ByuN to crack.
That's the problem. You mentioned the Vikings. That's a really big problem. Dream, not even really adding a lot of medevacs in general here, has established absolute dominance in the air war. And the air war is what's going to allow him to actually kill ByuN. You know, if he tries to just make Marine tank medevac alongside ByuN, then that's where tank advantages really come in. Properly placed tanks, good missile turret placement, you know, whatever. That's how ByuN holds until 200, and then it's fair again when they're both maxed out. But if he can go into Viking Liberator, then ByuN having well-placed tanks doesn't matter as much. But in order to utilize that, Dream does need to get on the other side of the map, which he's now trying to do, finally breaking through this army with a good anti-armor missile to help out as well, and he will be breaking through. ByuN has to respect that. But it took a little while, you know? ByuN's army actually was able to hang around longer than you would have thought, kind of take that map control as much as possible, and now that finally Dream is pushed out, now it's his time to take over the TVT and start placing his Liberators offensively too, and that's really scary for ByuN.
If ByuN didn't lose those tanks right there, I'd say that he's recovered really nicely here. Like, the SCV discrepancy's been fixed. His army's starting to catch up as well. You know, he's a little bit behind in that upgrade, like I mentioned, but because he doesn't have tanks, he has no real ability, and no Vikings, no Liberators, no air control. He is going to lose this planetary. There's nothing he can do about this.
Yeah, I think he's gotta just give it up, right? But buy as much time as possible, which is why he's even bothering to repair it. He's gonna try and hit the third base, realizing he can't, goes into the main base with a Viking, 2 missile turrets, some Marines unload. Hopefully it actually distracts Dream, but with 2 sensor towers for Dream, you can only be so distracted. And that's a planetary up there against what ByuN only has Marines.
Planetaries don't care about your Marines. Dream's going up the guts here of ByuN with the Marines and the tanks. Takes a big siege tank fire there from the third base and the natural siege tanks of ByuN. His Marines are trying to find an angle. They've got a free third base here. 1 tank to try and stop them, but that won't be enough. Oh, he is losing quite a few Marines. There were a couple more tank shots than I expected on those Marines, which are very damaged. Dream still threatening the front here. The Liberator does get picked off, and that's a nice pick off for ByuN to be sure, but the reinforcements from Dream, good enough to catch these tanks. A little bit of miscontrol there from ByuN. An uncharacteristic mistake. Both players taking huge damage. Dream's lost a 41 SCVs here, which is absolutely massive, but can his army be stopped?
Yeah, that really wasn't as bad for ByuN as it should have been, right? Like, he's evened up the supply, but unfortunately, that's because he killed his opponent's SCVs, not his army. Now trying to clear up the army doesn't look like it's going to work out so well. Vikings and tanks just absolutely slaughtering those SCVs, and there's not much besides those SCVs available. Dream evens up the score.
He certainly does. We wanted this, Zombie Grub. Well, at least I did. I don't remember if you said you wanted this or not, but I definitely wanted this. I knew that Dream had it in him to have this excellent TVT against ByuN, and this series has become interesting. We are just on the cusp of getting into game number 3, of course. So, have you been enjoying this series so far, Zombie Grub?
I think it's a pretty good show of TVT. It could go a little bit longer, perhaps, a little more of the lines drawn in the sand type situation, right? But I mean, that's the only thing that we missed so far, because we finally got something that was a little more back and forth, something where Dream could actually show how good his TVT can be, and that should be very exciting for Game 3 now that we know that both of them are actually at each other's skill level, and this isn't going to just be a stomp.
Well, that's going to be coming up very soon, of course. We're going to head over to the guys on the floaty space desk before we get into the third game, the deciding game of ByuN versus Dream. So, James and friends, take it away. Or video games. Don't go away.
1-1 currently between Dream and ByuN, as they've had quite the barn burner to start things off with their 2 games. Of course, we'll be moving into that 3rd game in just a little bit's time. But I have my gentlemen here at the desk to break down some of the moments that we've had in some of the other games. And you know what, Roddy? You teased us before. I'm coming back to you for the SOS game. Talk to us about it.
I have to admit, I completely forgot about the SS game because Bunny Laser is currently going on. It's been a 22-minute barn burner, as you would say. But obviously, you got to give credit where credit is due for all the SOS fans out there. Your boy's looking really good. Game 1 against Probe. Pretty standard stuff. Both players expanded. Probe's build was a little bit interesting, like 2 Sentry into 2 Adept, expand... Or no, excuse me, 2 Adept into 2 Sentries, into expanded 2 more Sentries. Didn't really do much with it. Came down to Stalkers against Stalkers. That was kind of it. Eventually, SOS brought back the 4 Stalker hit squad, hopped into the main base, killed a couple probes, and then just won. They did the same thing. SOS just did it better, had more stuff. As we are actually hopping into Bunny Laser in the first game, you guys can see that it's still going on. But I want to give a quick shout out to Game 2 of SOS Probe, where SOS played a close to flawless game. At one point, he killed 26 units, like an Oracle, and 25 probes, and he lost nothing up to that point. Absolutely nothing. So it's safe to say that that was a relatively one-sided affair. Kind of to be expected, perhaps, James, but I was still hoping for a little bit more spice out of Probe. But SOS just looked really good, man. I think he's ready to party.
Fair play, fair play. Thank you very much for the updates. And Nathanius, coming over to you, what do you have currently for us?
Absolutely nothing.
No?
Kellizer and Armani are in their first game of their match, but yeah, nothing crazy. It's happened, just a little bit of harass poke back and forth. I don't have it super active on there. I've been I've had my eyes kind of locked on this mainstream match because we were still in between games for most of that phase.
Yeah. Fair play. Well, I'll come back to you once our actual series is concluded here between Dream and ByuN. How about yourself, Cats? Do you have anything for me?
Absolutely nothing.
Damn.
So, yeah, there's a game going on between Scarlet and Cyan, but it was paused for the most part. I think it's now just begun again, but you can catch that on Hearthstem's stream. I think he's casting it with Sword Off. So, yeah, you guys have missed nothing on that front.
All right, well, those are our updates, I suppose, here. We didn't really have too much, but that's going to be it. We are going to head over to our commentator team now to bring you game number 3, finally here, of Dream going up against ByuN.
All right, looks like we're back. Well, James didn't need to activate our desk, actually. We're still just floating over here. I mean, it actually feels kind of isolating in a weird way, Zombie Grub. You know, even though we're literally isolated by using the magic of technology to actually be anywhere near each other right now. We're so much further away from our friends over there at the big brain analysis desk and the space desk.
Yeah.
Feels bad, man.
Well, that's exactly what it was like when we were actually in the studio, if I recall correctly, was that we just looked at the caster desk and we were like, hey, guys, over there. Hi.
You know what? You're actually right. That actually might be very similar to the actual distance in the actual studio. When we did the opening week, but because we do have ByuN and Dream here getting ready for game number 3. They are in the lobby and just about ready to go. And with a really good showing from ByuN there in game 1, Dream actually managed to finally get his plan to go to culmination there and get himself a tied series. So good to see him actually show what he's made of. I know a lot of people are obviously really favoring ByuN, but you can't sleep on Dream here. He's absolutely no slouch, and this could go either way. What an interesting way to start up the tournament, though, if ByuN goes to the loser's bracket right at the start. I mean, he was a guy I was picking to actually be in the final of the whole thing, not just like getting out of the open bracket. I actually expect ByuN to go real deep here. Maybe, I tell you what, I'd be sweating a little bit if it gets knocked to the loser's bracket because there's no free runes down there. There's a lot of very scary players in this round of 36.
You know, you're not insane for guessing that ByuN could be in the finals of this tournament, but that was I feel like that'd be a tough bet to convince a lot of other people for. It's what they want. It's what they hope for, right? But
there is a Twitch chat filled with people right now that are agreeing with me, Zombie Grub. I find that the people are on my side. All right?
Okay, yes. Well, then hopefully he does not get sent down to the loser's bracket, as this guy in the top left could not take game number 2. He's got one more chance to actually make it on forward. He is the blue Terran, ByuN.
Yes, indeed. And in the bottom right here, winning game number 2, looking to close it out with a second win in a row. If he can do it, it'll be such a huge win for him. This is Dream.
Maynard, I have a question for you.
Zombie Grub, talk to me.
Okay, it's completely unrelated to TVT, but it does include Terrans, all right? So this,
right, I hope so.
this platform that we magically appeared on for the broadcast. You know, it rises, it lowers. Hopefully it has enough fuel to stay, you know, up here for the entirety of the broadcast. When it lands, could it kill a tiny little Zergling on the ground?
Well, from what I understand from 20 plus years in this video game, a burrowed dog-sized insect actually does not allow a structure to land on top of it.
Okay, so no, it's exactly like the Terran
Exactly. You know,
buildings.
yeah.
Okay, all right, very good.
This is science fiction, Zombie Grub, not science fact, all right? So in this space opera war game RTS that we're casting right now, it is indeed physics being thrown out the window. You know, our platform goes up, our platform goes down. You can't explain that, but we can explain that the dog-sized insect burrow will block structures, even if they are hundreds of tons and way bigger. But yes, I'm glad we had this talk, though. It's good to clear it up.
Yeah, I really had to before I went away, you know. This was the only thing I wanted to bring up for the cast. So, I mean, my job is pretty much done. But I guess I'll stick around, cast some more TVT. We do have, once again.
It would do me a real solid if you stuck around and didn't actually leave right now. That'd be great.
I'd just be like, see you later, man. Have fun solo casting. That'd be a good time.
Yeah, I mean, I'd never cast with you again, but no, I'm just kidding. I'd actually probably... You'd actually have to walk out on me probably half a dozen times for me to finally be like, you know what? I don't know if I'm keen with casting on it next time.
You know, when we were casting TSL, I actually did that to Roddy to bring Mr. Bitter in. I don't know if you saw that little gag that I did.
Oh, that little bit. Yeah, I saw that.
Like, yeah, I need to warm this out, or I need to put sugar in or whatever. It's kind of bitter. But you know what really warms my heart about that was that Rotterdam afterwards was like, well, I knew that like she would never leave me just in the middle of a broadcast, so of course I knew something was up. I was like, oh, thank you. I'm a professional.
Yeah. You wouldn't do a brother like that. At the moment, we actually are seeing very similar to Game 1 and Game 2. Both players sort of like have their way to open. Dream with the Widowmine again, getting these extra gases later again. ByuN, still same sort of opening as well. Wondering when that starport finishes, I'm going to see a medevac straight away once more. Like, it just seems to be the way that both these players wanted to open. And he's reactoring out of Marine, so it looks like another medevac drop.
All right, so, I mean, one thing that ByuN did improperly last game compared to the first game was that his map presence didn't really actually give him the scouting that it usually would. He missed the move out, and that it was a serious move out as well, despite having his units on the side of the map. If he does something aggressive here, that's going to be one thing they wants to fix. But this is hyper aggressive. He has 4 Reapers, 2 Hellions, now down to 1, but the 4 Reapers are still absolutely terrifying. Dream having 2 Reapers thought he'd probably be okay, and to buy time for the Hellion at least, but the Hellion also might not be enough against 4 Reapers controlled by ByuN. That is scary for anyone.
Yeah. Reapers of ByuN have the ability to somehow just never die. They've done a great job here trading at the start of the game. Obviously, the trade's definitely in ByuN's way so far, as he's opened up this natural a little bit. Dream doesn't really have until you have that Tech Lab factory unit, whether it be a tank or a Cyclone, it's kind of hard to deal with this Reaper discrepancy that Dream's got right now. And keep in mind that ByuN is making a medevac, and you don't really make that to sit at home and provide healthcare for your SCVs. That is to load up more things and set them across the map. So ByuN going to really put the pressure on Dream again.
Exactly. And that's could be problematic. I mean, Dream is probably expecting this, but since ByuN is, I think, this game being even more intent on actually being aggressive, not just staying outside of the base, then he's going to actually have to showcase his own very good micro. He's going to try and get a lock on, but doesn't really get to kill the medevac. Still has a Cyclone alive, lock onto a Reaper, does at least grab that, reducing the number of units that ByuN has to micro with, but ByuN is going to have to try and stand and fight away from the auto turret. He is actually still rallying across the map. This is Death Aura. This is the longest rush distance possible.
He does not seem to care, Zombie Grub. He keeps sending more and more units, more and more coals into this fire, but I don't know. The tank is out now for Dream. He does not really have any energy or many hit points at all in that Raven. Another one's about to pop, though, which will have an auto turret. Oh, that lock-on, and it's Siege, so ByuN can't lift it up. That Cyclone's going to get the shot off. They traded. The tank died for the Cyclone, which is great for Dream here. Finally gets ByuN off his front lawn.
Yeah, that's I mean, well played by Dream, keeping that Cyclone alive. Usually locking on to Reapers isn't ideal, and it certainly isn't. You want to kill the medevac and you want to kill the tanks, 100%, absolutely. But because the Cyclone lived, and it did manage to kill 2 Reapers, then a tank, and sacrifice itself, that sacrifice was very worth it. Dream so far doing an excellent job against a ByuN who finally actually pulled the trigger more than he ever had in the previous 2 games, was absolutely prepared for it, and now gets a bit of an advantage here. He's up in workers, he's slightly up in army supply, he has faster stims, so I mean, it's not unrecoverable advantages for ByuN, that is, disadvantages, but it's going to be a bit tough for ByuN now.
Yeah, a little bit awkward. Well, he's going to send in that auto turret and get a few more SCV kills, and also hitting the natural at the same time as well, which could really work out if your opponent overextends and just pulls all their SCVs from the main. Oh man, that's actually a lot of SCV damage here. I mean, Dream's army is completely out of position. ByuN has done a lot of damage here to start things off with. This is another one of the situations like Game 2, though, where I'm like, can ByuN hold the counterattack, though?
That was a very well-timed siege, and he barely makes it out of the way of the auto turret, but that tank is going to fall. One siege is up in the main base, and this is once again gotten a little bit weird. Dream has taken so much economic damage, so much more than you would have expected, but ByuN doesn't really have an army to defend this.
And he's got these tanks in the main, but those Ravens still rule the skies, and Dream has these extra Marines to buffer as well, just pushing all those SCVs into the corner here. Finally has to step back away from tank splash though, tank range here in the main base of ByuN. It is very awkward here for both players. Similar supplies, of course, but just means Dream's got the bigger army, because ByuN has killed so many SCVs, and he's killing more over here in the natural of Dream.
Yeah, this is a lot of damage. That orbital going down would actually be huge. Raven from the backside throwing out some auto turrets, looking for both tanks, finds both tanks actually. Really nicely done. Well, ByuN still has his 2 in the main, but the natural actually does go down. ByuN too busy looking to where the position that Raven wasn't paying attention to the weak orbital, and that is bad news. This actually not even an orbital, won't fall, but the economies now are closer than you would expect. I mean, ByuN's up 7 SCVs, but only on 2 bases.
Yeah, that's the thing. Well, this thing isn't an orbital either. That is a functioning third command center here for Dream, something that ByuN does not have the luxury of saying he has. He started up his combat shield, he's got his 1-1 upgrades. Let's look at where the players are at now in this weird Game 3. This has actually been a very back and forth series, and I'm looking at this one and I'm like, I mean, Dream's certainly in a much better spot on paper now that you look at it, but this isn't over, Zombie Grub. Normally you see a command center dying at like the 7.5 minute mark in a TVT and you're like, all right, well, obviously this other Terran's going to win this game, but I actually don't know. This could go either way still. It is ByuN after all. He seems to just survive much longer than most Terrans.
Absolutely agreed, he does. But oh yeah, that is quite terrible. You know, in the first game, Dream lost to 4CC, and I was like, yeah, but you know, they're both still gonna max out. They haven't really traded a whole lot. It's like it's replaceable. Just have to defend longer than you would want. It sucks, but okay. But losing a natural command center at 7 minutes, that is absolutely brutal. ByuN being denied access into the main base again for some cheeky Raven harassment. Could still use it on the front lines, but now it's weak too. So I don't even know how true that is. But ByuN wants to take control of the game, knowing that he is certainly behind. This is a risk. What if Dream had actually built Medivacs and was dropping his attempted new third? It'd be devastating, but it's a risk that ByuN is willing to take. He has to take.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, ByuN can't really just go for plus EV plays here. He needs to try and take some risks. And at the moment, he is going to get his army set up as sort of at the 4th base location or potential 3rd base location for Dream, as he starts to clear up a little bit more of the map from ByuN, taking a little bit more map control. ByuN trying to surprise Dream with a push. 1-1 is finished up. Obviously, he's got Stim. That's all well and good. His natural has been retaken, so he's mining off that base again. The incomes have evened out a little bit, but Dream has enjoyed a lot more income for quite a few minutes here in this game. So as a result, does have the bigger army and the defender's advantage. Can't forget about that. Scan from ByuN, sees where the 3rd base is coming out, wants to deny it, wants to make it a little bit tougher for Dream than it should be.
That is an awful lot of not Marines defending for Dream. I wonder if ByuN is picking up with that. 2 Medivacs headed off to the left side. Kind of what I was mentioning a minute ago is happening now. They are headed into the main base. A little bit of harassment in the natural, apparently. ByuN totally not anticipating this. Really has nothing. A tank is about to pop. Okay, in the natural, I guess he has some units. Maybe he can end up holding here, but Dream is going to be getting more damage done.
That tank in the main base of ByuN's getting quite a few shots off on the ball of Marines that were clustered up in that little choke point there. But again, 13 SCVs have died, exacerbating the economic lead here for Dream, making things tough for him again back at home. ByuN's just trying to get his natural back up, but now the main's in shambles, and that 3rd base is open as well. Oh, and the auto turrets of the natural. Dream all over ByuN on his side of the map. He's taken an incredible supply lead here, a 40 supply lead for Dream. Absolutely massive. What a game from Dream.
Absolutely fantastic. ByuN he wanted to control. He was starting to make his way back in the numbers, basically, until the 2 Medivacs dropped into his main. He loses 22 SCVs. He still doesn't have it under control. He's going to try and clear it up, gets 1 Medivac, so that's a little bit less to worry about. But ByuN knows that, you know, whereas before it was recoverable and tough, this is almost impossible recovery. Almost. It's not really desperate.
Yeah, clutching at straws to think of something that ByuN has an advantage here. I guess he's 2-2 is slightly faster, but does that really matter when you're down 23 armies play? I guess it does if your army is mainly tanks over marines, I guess. But that's kind of clutching at straws. You see that Dream's armory was a little bit later there, so his 2-2 is just all that slightly later, but really just every single lead at the moment for Dream. ByuN going to go across the map again with his army to try and make magic happen. This kind of opens him up back at home. Once again, he's taking a very large risk. He is so open, and Dream still has these 2 medevacs. Very worried for ByuN here in this game.
Yeah, superb play by Dream, though. He's just like, I'm just going to leave the things that defend a bunch of areas. You know, the tanks can defend more than their actual, like, you know, their lone worth with their splash, and then just send 2 medevacs over. You know, worst case scenario, I defend whatever you throw at me and then get some damage done, or I just pull my medevacs back and say, okay, I guess not, but I'm still ahead. I know that much for sure. Now, these drops actually end up going a little bit sour, which is finally some good news that ByuN desperately needs to at least, you know, cheer up his spirits, if nothing else. But, you know, it's still not a good sign when ByuN can't really do very much about his opponent's economy.
Yeah, true that, and Dream's just really had the bigger economy for so long here, acting like a broken record as ByuN, his army's in the same spot. Like, he tried this push before, it didn't really work out. He's going to go up a pretty wide ramp here, and Dream knows where he is because of that Sensor Tower as well. This is so hard to try and make happen here for ByuN, who's once again playing the style of just kind of ignoring air units for the most part and just concentrating on Marine, Tank, and Medevac. Finally gets rid of that medevac at Dream, cleans up his main base, so no more Dream on his side of the map at least, one less Thorn on his side, but unable to really counter pressure.
And, you know, shockingly, Dream only up about 30 supply, so that's pretty good. means that ByuN still has a shot, absolutely, right? ByuN's trying to hold off Dream from getting his 4th base as fast as possible. He's going to be able to deny it maybe for a little bit. ByuN's tank count actually looking quite good. As long as he can keep track of where Dream's army is coming from, then that tank count is actually, you know, it's the best thing he has right now, and he can definitely use it, but not against these 2 Ravens. Actually going to back away as he realizes that Dream is setting up for a concave. He's going to maybe try and take the fight on the high ground, however. That orange on those Marines is really scary. He's dependent on those tanks more so than ever before.
A few less armor points on those Marines from ByuN, so negating that those upgrades at all. So those Marines are actually on like -1 armor right now. And that makes it very tough for ByuN to actually capitalize here. He's got a nice sieged up location, but all Dream's doing is actually kind of cutting ByuN off from his side of the map. He still has units at home, like a good reinforce there from Dream going over to the 3rd base to try and handle this attempted 1-2 punch of ByuN. Like, ByuN can't crack that. No way. He scans and pulls back immediately.
It was a good idea. What's really scary for ByuN in the situation, though, he has about, 70% of his army to the left, 30 on the right or something like that. Overall, his army still isn't as big as Dream's. So, like, if Dream could defend both sides and have something go up the middle, or again, have drops headed towards ByuN's side of the map. But luckily for ByuN, that's not the case. Dream actually has just consolidated pretty much everything at this point, so his army is absolutely huge. It's about 15 above his opponents, but 15, that's workable. If ByuN can track this army, maybe snipe those Ravens, which have really been quite painful, the fact that they're still alive at 14 minutes, then he can make a defense. But Dream, he wants this best of 3, wants to prove everyone wrong, and he's going to try and do it by running up right into ByuN's 3rd base.
And again, this army of ByuN is kind of exiled on the left side here. He can't push those tanks into this line of Dream, and that means this base is in trouble again, and it gets picked off. Dream in ByuN's face. ByuN able to do nothing about it. His army is across the map, cut off, just exiled completely. There's no way in. He's going for the big YOLO counterattack, but it's into siege tanks and pulled SCVs. I think that Dream here is just seconds away from taking the series zombie grab. All he needs to do is just hold.
Yeah, I mean, the Marines do finally break through, take out the tanks, or maybe just going to avoid the Liberator for now, but ByuN's main base looks like it might just be cracked. Interference mission went down, an anti-air missile went down, so this Marine fight should not look very pretty. Dream's Marines are all types of stacked up in that ramp, however, so he doesn't quite break ByuN yet. But ByuN, what can he do with the army that he has left over? He tries to go into the planetary. That's going to take a little while to actually crack, which does not favor ByuN at all. Dream takes the 2-1.